My name is S.K. Sundram. I'm 60 years old. I like to share a very traumatic experience in my life which I had and which has brought about a big change in the way I look at life. To start off with, I like to go back to 20th of September, the year 2010, when I was a very normal person, and at the age of 57 I was very normal, and I went off to sleep, and early morning at about 2:30 a.m. I suddenly got up with a very bad chest pain and all the signs and symptoms of oncoming heart attack. So I got up and got my wife to take me up to the hospital. So when I was admitted at the hospital, the doctors at the emergency ward early in the morning, they checked and then they told me that it was not a heart attack. And then I was admitted in the hospital, and it took them almost a day over before they actually did all the tests, including angiogram, which showed that the heart vessels were clear. And it was 1.5 days later that they found out that actually I was having a tumor growing from my neck downwards, you see. And from the x-rays they saw that it was quite a big tumor, and the doctors recommended that I should do something about it straight away. And one of the suggestions given was that I should go for immediate surgery to remove the tumor, after which they suggested that it will be tested before they can give any conclusive results about what tumor was all about. Now, that came as a big shock to me. At that point, it was a very big shock to me. I was a very active businessman. I never had any symptoms of any disease in me, and I was leading a very normal life. I have my children, I have my businesses. At that time when I was admitted, I remember I had about 11 active businesses running for me, and a lot of staffs and a lot of commitments. So many things were going on in my mind. Now, when they discovered this, of course, like I said, it was a lot of questions started running on my mind. What's going to happen? Why all of a sudden this is happening? And I was really lost and traumatized by the whole thing. And immediately I consulted two of my friends who are also oncologists through my Rotary Club. They are all members and they are also oncologists. And they also suggested that yes, I should go ahead with the suggestions given by my medical doctors. And I decided to go ahead with the surgery. Now, the surgery, the process of the surgery as advised by the cardiothoracic surgeon was that it is very similar to a bypass, whereby they have to open up the chest and take out the tumor, which was actually growing from the throat downwards, and it was lodged between my lungs and my heart. And so they had to go through a major surgery to remove it. Now, as they were preparing me to go in for the surgery, which involved a lot of shaving off of the chest, all that, I was getting more and more worried. Now, on the morning of the surgery, which was the 22nd of September, year 2010, I remember very clearly that in my mind it was only running one thing, that what's going to happen after the surgery, so what's the next thing, so everything else did not matter. My mind was very much thinking only about what is going to happen next. And the worry about the status of the tumor was worrying me a lot. Now, just after the surgery, it was a major surgery. When they wheeled me out, of course I was unconscious. My family members all were there, My friends were there. They said that they actually brought out a tumor which looked like a very long eel, black eel. And I was in a coma for 3 days. I was under sedation and I was not conscious at all. I remember very clearly when I opened up my eyes after 3 days, my surgeon was standing next to me, and I asked him, the first question I asked him was, how was it? No? His immediate answer, which I remember, was that it was quite sinister. We looked in and we saw that it was quite sinister. The tumor had spread to a number of places, and I went into deep sleep again. And after that, the tumor was sent, samples of the tumor was sent to 2 places for biopsy. And another 2 days later, while I was still lying in my bed, the results were out. It was confirmed that it was a malignant 3rd stage cancer. And that took me by a big shock. And I remember very clearly, I was lying in bed and I was looking up at the ceiling, looking clearly at the ceiling, and a lot of thoughts was running in my mind. And primary to the thoughts was that what's going to happen to all the businesses I had developed, what's going to happen to the family, what's going to happen to, so many questions started coming up in my mind. Now, as all this was going on, a friend of mine came to visit me, and I wanted to start moving a bit, so he helped me to get up, and I went to the toilet. When I went to the toilet, I looked at my face. I was very shocked because it had been almost 5 to 6 days, and I had not shaven, because I'm a person who shaves every day, including Sundays. And when I looked at the mirror, I was very, I felt sick, because the face didn't give a good look. So immediately I told my friend, look, this is not how I want to look. And he immediately went downstairs and bought a shaver for me. And I came up and I insisted that I wanted to shave and keep my normal self. And he helped to shave me. And after the shave, looking at my face, I felt psychologically better. And as I came back to the bed and I was lying in bed, the operation which I went through to remove the tumor was a very painful one, because every time I cough, the operation involved the cutting up of the chest. So every time I cough, it feels like the chest is going to open up, and the organs, heart is going to come out. But somehow or other, I went through that. And about a week later, the oncologist came to see me, and he said that since it's confirmed that I have cancer, he suggested that I have to start my chemotherapy sessions. And they said that, and my surgeon was also there. My surgeon clearly confirmed that the tumor had grown to a stage where it was already starting to stick to my, one side was sticking to my heart, and the other one was sticking to my lungs. And it confirmed it was a 12-inch tumor, which is a really, really long tumor. And they were surprised that I did not have any symptoms at all prior to my surgery, because it was such a big tumor inside me. And they said that been such a long one, and having to already sticking to my lungs and my heart, they just told me that I was very lucky, because we had waited about a week plus. It might have actually punctured either the heart or the lungs, and it would have become a very messy affair. So after the oncologist suggested that I go for my chemo, that was another big surprise. And as I was there, I was thinking to myself, why all these sudden things are happening to me? Why so many new things happening? And all the while, whenever I read newspapers about all the information about cancer, I always thought that This is something which has got nothing to do with me. I read about chemotherapy, always thought all these things were nothing to do with me. So when I was told to go for all these things, I was really lost, and I did not know what to do. There was no information other than the catalog which was given by the oncologist, which said that it's nothing to worry, that everything should be all right. And he advised me that I can be very normal about the whole thing. So I went back, I was discharged, and about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks later, I had to come in for my first chemotherapy. And I was trying to read as much as I can from the internet about chemotherapy. What is it all about? Because there's a lot of information there, but there's no clear-cut guide about what should be done during the chemo, after, and what to do. It's a lot of information scattered all over the net. So when I went for my first chemo, I remember very clearly that I was praying a lot. Because I've heard so much about the after effects of chemotherapy, what will happen when you go through chemo. Because chemo itself is a painful process, and the effects after chemo is also, from what I heard, from what I've read, is a very painful thing. Everybody was saying that you'll be having ulcers, you'll having all sorts of after effects of the chemo. Now, as I was lying in my the chair where the chemo was being put into me, which was about an 8-hour process, I remember clearly next to me there was one Chinese gentleman. He was going through his 5th chemo. He had a cancer of the nose, and he looked at me and he smiled at me, and we started a conversation. And he told me that he has gone through 5 chemos, and he also was exactly like me, and he did not know what to do in the first place. He was lost, and he was also struggling, and he was going through a lot of uncertainty in his life. Then he told me that after his 2nd and 3rd chemo, he gathered information from other patients, and he kind of realized that there are certain things he should have done from day one, which he missed out. And he advised me that there are a few things which I should do consistently in order to overcome the effects of the chemotherapy. As we know, chemo is an injection of chemicals into the body, and it kills most of the white cells, and creates a lot of other side effects. So having heard to him, I felt a bit more comfortable, and I felt encouraged, and I went through my first chemo without much of problem. And when I came back, I immediately started implementing everything which he taught me. And I used to see him 2-3 times after that, and I just thought that he was God sent, because he gave me a lot of information about what to go through, what to do during the chemo process. Now, I went through six doses, they call it the regime. I went through 6 doses of 6 rounds of chemotherapy. Now, after I finished all my 6 rounds of chemotherapy, every time I go and see my doctor, he used to tell me that I was doing well, because I wasn't actually showing any symptoms of the chemotherapy inside me, and I was able to manage it very well. And after finishing all the 6 cycles of chemotherapy, I went and did my PET scan, and it showed that there was no trace of any more cancer cells in the body, that I was completely okay. I've come out of it well. And my doctor also advised me that I've come out, I was lucky to have come out so well out of the whole process without much of suffering. And at that time, while going through the chemo and all that, I learned as much as I could about the whole process of chemo, and since I was going through it myself, I I decided that once I get out of all these things, I wanted to come out with a structured way of how to handle chemotherapies and radiation. And I said that I wanted to help. I said to myself that I should make efforts to start helping other patients who are going through chemo and radiation. By that time, like I said at the beginning, that I was involved in about 11 businesses. A challenge came about: how am I going to do what my heart wanted me to do with while being involved in so many other business activities. There again, I made a decision. I said that, look, I wanted to sell off most of my businesses so that I can taper off my commitments and start getting time to do what I really wanted to do. Now, fortunately, within 1 year, from the time I went for my surgery, by September 2011, 1 year later, I was able to find buyers, and I was able to sell off 10 of my businesses. And I ended up with only one of my core business where it does not take up a lot of my time. And at that time, I met up with few other chemo patients, and I started sharing what I knew, sharing what I went through, teaching them how to go through the process of chemotherapy without much of after effects and the pain of going through chemo. And I started specifically guiding one particular patient. And I clearly remember this lady was a fourth stage ovarian cancer patient, and the doctors have given up on her, and everybody said that, look, fourth stage is something you cannot recover. I guided her personally, and I spent a lot of time guiding her, and she came out very well. And she recovered, and she's doing well. Now it's been 3 years, and she's perfectly normal. She's moving around and spending her time with the grandchildren now. That gave me a lot of courage and encouragement to do more. And since then, I started going back to the hospital to look for patients, and wherever I see people, I just share what I know. And many people were amazed by what I could tell them. And I started guiding many other patients. And after a while, I realized that I better document the whole thing, and I prepared an article where I teach people what to do, what they should do, what they should not do, what they should eat, and how do they handle the whole process of chemotherapy. And so far, I've handled about 70 old patients. Most of them are okay. Some are still going through treatment. Many have recovered and gone back to their normal lives. And we keep in touch. And the joy of guiding another person through the thing is something which I enjoy a lot now. I have scaled down my business involvement, and I'm spending more and more time taking care of patients by guiding them and giving them advice. Now, my sincere desire is that I would like to set up a center, a place where I could guide, where I could bring in patients undergoing chemotherapy and radiation for day care, giving them the right kind of nutrition, giving them the right type of psychological advice and moral support, which right now I'm doing remotely with them. And I'm working hard towards getting up a place like that, because a few of the parents of patients whom I've helped, by the way, the youngest patient I've handled is a 15-year-old schoolboy. The oldest is a 72-year-old lady. I know specifically about two or three of the mothers whose son was diagnosed with cancer, and I helped with the chemo process. They are ever willing to come and run this center for me, because they also know what to do for these patients. So right now I'm looking at getting up a center. I've also formed an NGO non-governmental organization which clearly says that this is going to be a support group for people going through chemo and radiation. Now, having said this so far, my focus is I believe that a patient who's diagnosed with cancer and going through treatment, I classify their requirement into I call it the 3 Ds, the 3 Ds, A, B, C, D, because the first part is the doctor. Whatever medication the doctor is advising and all that, I don't get involved in that at all. I leave it to the doctors to advise the patient what is right and what is wrong, and whatever medication they think is right, I leave it to them to give it to the patient. I take care of the other 2 Ds, of which the second D is about discipline. I think a patient who goes through a very disciplined way of handling the whole process of chemo and radiation will have a very high chance of recovery. And the third D, which I encourage the patients to devote a lot of time, is divinity, which is prayers and belief in God. So that I focus most of my time on the discipline part of it, whereby I tell them that they should start taking a lot of steamed food, they should avoid sugar, the basic things, but I tell them with the reason why they should do this, why they should do that, and a lot of them they believe what I say and they follow. And whatever I've done so far is a free service. I don't charge. Out of the 72 over, there are about 12 patients who come from very poor background. I support them financially by purchasing all the food items for the patient, and I do give them money to the mother, especially to take care of the people who are affected by this cancer treatment. And it just costs me a lot of money to handle such patients. I call them every day without fail. Call them every day at night on my way back home, and I talk to every patient every day just to find out how they're doing and what's happening to them, and giving them the moral support and the encouragement. Whenever they refer to me about whatever problems they have, I do tell them what has to be done, and they do follow. Of course, something medical, I always tell them to go back to the doctors. On the advisory side, I give them the counseling and advice. So most of them, after they recover, they always come back and tell me that the most valuable thing they ever went through during the whole process was my calls to them every day, because they look forward to the call to talk to me, because having gone through the whole process myself, I understand what they are going through, and I always give them the appropriate advice, and it was very valuable to them, and they all appreciated it a lot. So the purpose of me putting this on video is to share what I know, and to let people out there know that if you are affected, or if you know people who are affected by cancer and they have been advised to go for chemo and radiation, I hope please don't get very worried. Please do contact me. I give free counseling service. I give free advice and guidance as to what has to be done. You can contact me anytime, even though I have my business, but my passion and my priority is to take care of such patients, and I'll be ever willing to guide you. And I do, like I said, my dream is to ultimately set up a center. I'm working towards it. I'm trying to raise some funds through, I do some seminars and sharing business knowledge with others, and to accumulate funds through those activities to fund for this NGO to function effectively. Now, like I said, the fear which I had on day one of cancer and chemo is something which I've overcome now, and I am very confident when I see a patient, and I can put a lot of courage back into their lives and work towards making them come back to a normal and active and meaningful life. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you. Bye.
என் பேர் தினேஷ். எனக்கு வயசு 24. 2 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னுக்கு டாக்டர் சொன்னாங்க எனக்கு வயசில் ஸ்டமக் கேன்சர்னு.
தினேஷோட அம்மா ஏன்னா டாக்டர் கேன்சர்னு சொன்னோன்னே வீட்டில் உள்ளவங்க எல்லாரும் ரொம்ப கவலைப்பட்டாங்க. நான் ஹாஸ்பிட்டலில் தான் வேலை செஞ்சுக்கிட்டு இருந்தேன். இப்போ மகன் சீக்காக இருக்கிறனால வேலையை கூட விடுற சூழ்நிலை வந்துருச்சு. சுந்தரம் ஸ்டார் வந்து பார்த்தாரு. வந்து பார்த்துட்டு ஸோ எப்படி பார்த்துக்கணும் அதெல்லாம் சொல்லி கொடுத்தாங்க. அந்தபடியே ஃபாலோ பண்ணேன். தினசரி அவங்க ஃபோன் பண்ணி கேட்பாங்க தினேஷை பற்றி. ஜாமான்லாம் வீட்டில் வந்து கொடுத்துட்டு போவாங்க.
கடைசி கட்ட கீமோ கிட்ட இருக்கேன். இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் நாளில் நான் வேலைக்கு போயிடுவேன்.
நான் ரொம்ப பேஷண்ட்ங்க பார்த்துக்கிட்டு இருக்காங்க. அதே மாதிரி அவங்க உதவினால தான் இவ்வளோ அளவுக்கு நான் தினேஷை வந்து பார்த்து எடுத்துகிட்டு வந்திருக்கேன். ஸோ இன்னொரு பேஷண்ட்கெல்லாம் ரொம்ப பேஷண்ட்ங்க அறிமுகப்படுத்தி விட்ருக்கேன் அவங்களுக்கு. நானும் என்னால் முடிஞ்சதுக்கு உதவி பண்ணுவேன்.
I am Kenny, 38 years old from VN. I'm a businessman. Okay, past 10 months, I have a lymphoma cancer, stage 2B. So doctor recommended me to do chemotherapy, then diagnose cancers. So at that time, I'm very shocked and very sad that I'm too young to have this cancer. Okay, so besides that, my family, my dad and my mom and my siblings also very sad and worries about me, about this case. So at that time, my sister Jacqueline will meet surgeon to consult me about the chemotherapy, the process, how the chemo effect, and help me to reduce my suffering and give me a lot of encouragement to build up my confidence. Now I already fully recover by surgeon support me and give me encouragement for me lah. So by right, the doctor say I have to do 8 rounds of the chemotherapy, but now I doing 6 chemotherapy only. I already finished my chemo few months ago. Okay, so now I already come out to working, doing my business, and travel to KL and Batu Pahat. So I will thanks my God, means at Surakarta in Malaysia, and my family members. At that time, they all really support me. Okay, besides that, syndrome also the same. I just follow their instructions. So now I'm fully recovered. If you have cancers, you can just follow stringent instruction, then just follow it. Then you will be recovered and you will be a survivor.
I'm Raju Mohan. I'm now 56 plus. 10 months ago, I was diagnosed as having a prostate cancer. When I first heard that I had prostate cancer, actually I was shocked and I was lost. And I really didn't know what to do. So as per doctor's advice, I was advised to go for radiation treatment. This is when I met my friend Mr. S.K. Sundaram, who came to my house personally and advised me the steps and the procedures, what to do and how to take care of myself during the radiation process. So I went through the process as advised by Mr. S.K. Sundaram, and the radiation process went through smoothly without any side effects and without much problems. I've now completed the whole process of the radiation and I'm perfectly alright, and the doctors have confirmed that I'm back to normal. I'm now back to my normal self and I'm back to work as usual after the treatment. I feel that the whole process that I've gone through and the advice given to me by Mr. Sundram is very effective, and it's a proven track record. And I hope that whoever is undergoing this problem to follow the advice and the proven record provided by Mr. Sundram,